And now for AFEX Commodities update. AFEX seems to be getting the attention of more investors as their record shows an 80% increase in the number of deals in the week ended 9th of August. Let's bring in Michael Martin now to bring us up to speed. Hello, Michael.
Hi, Ladi. Good morning. Thank you for having me once again.
Great to have you. So let's have a recap of what happened in the week.
All right, thank you very much. So this is the commodities market summary. And if you look at the table in front of you, you would see that the total value of transactions traded on the exchange fell by 66.67% from around 0.39 billion naira to close the trading week at 0.13 billion naira. The total number of contracts traded on the exchange also fell by 80.04% from 18,982 contracts to close the trading week at 3,788 contracts. The total number of deals, however, went up by 80% from 20 deals to close the trading week at 36 deals. We also saw green with the ACI, which is the AFEX Commodities Index, which went up on 454.70 to close the trading week at 459.22. The AFEX Export Index also went up by 5.73%, which went up of 173.33 points to close the trading week at 176.61 points. With regards to the volume of contracts traded on the exchange in the week under consideration, we saw a general decline in the volume of contracts traded, with the biggest changes happening with maize, which fell from 15,506 contracts to close the trading week at 541 contracts. Which we also saw changes in sorghum, which traded from 1,682 contracts last week to trading no contracts this week. The similar thing also happened with ginger, which traded 492 contracts last week to trading no contracts this week. And the only change that we saw with regards to the volume of contracts traded was in soybean, which went up from 1,279 deals to close the trading week at 3,237 deals. With regards to the price changes at the exchange, we generally saw an increase with maize and soybean, with maize going up by 3.07%, gaining 676 naira in the contract value to close the trading week at 22,676 naira per contract. The other change with regards to commodities was also with soybean, which went up by 0.28%, gaining 99 naira in the contract value to close the trading week at 35,082 naira per contract. And last but certainly not least, we have the fair trade exchange traded commodity, which went up by 3.07%, gaining 473 naira in the contract value to close the trading week at 15,400 naira per contract. So that's largely all of the price changes and volume changes that we saw occur in the commodities market in the week under consideration. And as we always say, if you want to know more about the commodities market, you can always go to our website, which is www.afxnigeria.com. And if you want to get started trading commodities, whether that's spot contracts, fixed income note, or even exchange traded commodities, you can always download our app, which is available on Apple and also on Android.
All right, Michael. Well, thank you for the summary. But we see that a lot of news is around cocoa at this time. Currently, just about a week ago, we had the news that Nigeria's cocoa export to the United States increased by over 300%. Top producers, Ivory Coast and Ghana, have signed cooperation. A whole lot is happening. We have a new variant of cocoa, but on the FX exchange, we saw that the price is unchanged. What happened? We thought with a lot of activities, we'll see some movements in the price.
Yes, thank you very much for that question. So just to give a bit of an overview as regards what Nigeria is currently doing with regards to cocoa exports. So currently, cocoa exports to the United States accounts for only about 4% of our total export value. And it is the case that has been growing significantly over the past 5 years from the year 2016. A brief calculation would show that number has grown by an approximately 46% over the past 5 years. Some of the biggest changes that we saw in the export value happened between the year 2019 and also last year, 2020, where the export value grew from around $5 million to close the year last year at just over $13 million. But it is the case that we are not currently in cocoa season. So it is the case that in the month of August is essentially when you start seeing a light volume of cocoa coming into the market before it's then is eventually exported. It might also be the case that maybe due to some of the port delays, some of the trades that have been closed at the earlier parts of the second quarter of the year are now currently being recognized by the trade associations. But aside from the fact that cocoa is not currently in season in the country, when you're comparing prices on the exchange vis-a-vis prices, when you're comparing prices on the exchange, it's always very important to delineate that there's often a price differential between what you have between the cocoa main crop, which is what you have being produced during the cocoa production season, and then the cocoa light crop, which is essentially what comes out a few weeks before the entire season itself starts. So that, in some sense, could also have accounted for the fact that you haven't been seeing a lot of the price changes on the exchange. And with regards to the United States, a lot of their origin commodities tends to come from this, as opposed to Cote d'Ivoire and Ghana that they import from. A lot of their other commodities also tends to come from South America. So a lot of those price changes and price dynamics should essentially be reflected in the futures price, and not necessarily the spot price that we have on the exchange. And it's also the case that with regards to cocoa exports from Nigeria, we only have one or two major cocoa exporters from the country, which would not necessarily, of course, in this case, be represented on the exchange. And so those are by and large some of the reasons that the price changes on the exchange. Prices haven't been changing, as frequently on the exchange as we have had with the trade volumes that we have for cocoa this year.
All right. Thank you so much, Michael, because I was beginning to wonder. Well, thank you and enjoy the rest of your day. But we have your colleague here talking about the theme for this year's International Youth Day, which recognizes the importance of youths to grow food systems across the world. The big question in Nigeria remains on how to activate increased youth participation in agribusiness, and that can in turn translate to thriving food systems and healthy environment. Well, IFEX is very much interested in this. That's why we have Stephanie Mills. Stephanie Mills is the growth manager for IFEX. Good to have you, Stephanie.
Thank you very much for having me.
Thank you for joining us.
Yeah. So is the level of participation of youth in agriculture as a result of the perception, and how do we change it to increase enough participation from the youth?
So yes, there's definitely a negative correlation. So we see that most youth have a perception that the agri sector is basically on high activities and that leads to less income. So, and there's a high perception that they need to have a lifestyle, and agriculture doesn't give them that income bracket. So we need to basically have a paradigm shift from traditional agriculture to more modern ways of doing this. And this mentality is basically because of the reduced education and accessibility to information to youth. But with digital disruption in every aspect, including agriculture, we see that there's been a drastic evolution in the sector. And with education and edtech solutions, we see that there's a rise. But youth participation is still low, and that is as a result of these factors.
All right, talking about education still, how can it be more accessible, for the youth so that they can, learn more about agriculture, and actually see the value, in agriculture?
So first off, we need to speak their language. So, and they also need to be involved in the policy and implementation process as well. So we see the older generation creating policies without the involvement of these youths that are supposed to take up the next generation processes, and that also affects. In getting the education accessible, we need to speak their language and come to the digital space and use technology to solve and explain agriculture in a very easy way. So take, for instance, AFEX has a platform called COMEX. So basically, COMEX is a digital marketplace that enables you to trade commodities with ease. And we go a step further by giving you market data to allow you to understand what is essential in making trades and all of that. And essentially, putting your ears on the ground with government officials and watching webinars. Coincidentally, we'll be having a webinar tomorrow in celebration of the International Youth Day, which basically is going to be focusing on how youth can lend their voices in transforming food systems as well. And we carefully handpick the speakers to be able to speak to the different value chains, as we want more youth to participate in all the value chains aside from the production stage, which is why they feel that there's no there isn't much money in the sector.
So what's the details of this webinar? How can people participate? The youths that you want, how do they get it?
Okay, yes, so they can go to our social media page, which is at Comex by Afex. The link is in our bio. And basically, they get access to not just knowing about the theoretical aspect of playing in the agri space, but hearing success stories for people who have done and gone through the process and are still sustaining their growth level in the sector.
So you also have the conversation of air and ocean pollution in the processing of food, in the food chain system. Obviously, we need some people to take care of this. Is there a way to attract the youth into this sector?
So like I always say, sustainability should be at the core of every sector, including agriculture. So we need to sensitize everyone in the value chain, starting from the farmers, processors, and manufacturers, to ensure that all processes are done in a sustainable manner. So let's take, for instance, the pre-production stage. In ensuring that it's more sustainable, you're sensitizing the farmers on better ways to eliminate waste. And one of our speakers is very sound in that area. She is the co-founder of Farms to You, and she's basically has used technology to be able to help farmers curate and specifically pick out crops in order to reduce waste and help them eliminate waste as well. And we also have a speaker who's also in the organic farming. And organic farming is on the rise, and this has helped to eliminate waste as well and reduce emission of CO2 in the environment. And in the distribution aspect, creating more, building more warehouses and storage facilities closer to the farmers and processors will help to reduce the emission of CO2 in the environment when you're reducing the logistic process.
All right, but how can youths make the food systems, more resilient and sustainable?
So first of all, they have to participate and be committed. So like I said, they have to. There has to be a paradigm shift first of all to enable them know that they need to move from the traditional agri space to the modern space. Once that paradigm shift is established, then they can go a step further with understanding that there are other ways to ensure that this is done. And we have, we've been able to create short content on our platform as well to ensure that people have access to information.
Okay, so we do hope that this webinar, we wish you success. And we hope that we see the impact, because we do have a lot of talks and meetings.
So many meetings.
Yeah, but we look forward to when the youth can actually participate. And I guess a major part of it will be to, like you said, introduce a lot of technology and digital, the digital system into it. So it's not seen as a dirty job.
Yeah.
And like you said, it's not the one that they cannot live their lifestyle.
And we can see multimillionaires,
Yes. And Stephanie talked about the success stories.
Yes. Yeah.
So that's
and we just need to make sure that youth understand that it's not just a poor man's sector. So we have rich people, billionaires, billionaires who are making it and sustaining their growth in the business.
And it's not just about going to the farm with a hoe.
Yeah, exactly.
All right, thank you so much, Stephanie Mills. Stephanie Mills is the growth manager with Afex. Thank you so much for shedding light on activities of Afex. We'll take a moment. When we come back, we'll head to the markets.